contribute $750 towards that. If it's a one and a dependent, 1,200. So there's a cap, and that's starting this July.
Yeah, you're one of the first ones on it, right?
Right. So that's one way of how organizations are mitigating that is you're going to this cafeteria plan rather than these plans that we're paying these premiums. In the private sector, what normally happens is some companies will pay 65% and the employee pays 35%. So so the cap that we have now, that's just the amount that's only going to be contributed. Whether the plan is more that they choose from, that will be part of the CalPERS health care plan, then that comes out of the employee's portion, what they pay. So we're addressing those now.
Yeah, that reminds me of another issue, which is what Obamacare does have, is the Cadillac plan tax. It's like 40% of the excess for a family over $27,500 per family per year is an excise tax on premiums above that. And so at Stanford, we are scrambling to figure out how to stay under that. And
does Stanford have a Cadillac plan?
Well, we have a cafeteria plan.
Yeah.
And so you can choose. We pay for Kaiser. And if you want that, you get it free. If you want anything that costs more, the various fee-for-service plans and so forth, including the high-cost providers like Stanford Medical Center, then you have to pay the difference. And that's now like $5,000 per family per year. And so people are really moving. Kaiser's market share is going up. But now, I'm just trying to think, we had to, in our benefits committee, we had to make a decision or give advice on who's going to pay the Cadillac tax if we hit it, if we're over the threshold. And we, committee said it should be the employees, because the purpose of the Cadillac tax is to give people to choose in less costly health plans. And I don't know, and so we were told that we have to decide that last year, so that the accountants could they want to reflect it on our financial statements.
Well, I think I'm not an expert on Cadillac tax, but I think officially the tax hits around 2017 or
2018.
2018. Okay. Yeah. So, but I guess the accountants want to start accounting for that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Well, the purpose of the tax is to help pay for the whole program.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And it's because right now people with Cadillac plans are getting that benefit and no taxes are being collected at all.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not just that they're capping. I mean, what I have and a lot of other academics have recommended is put a limit on the amount that you can have tax-free. The employer contribution is tax-free. But people want to do it with their own net after tax money, let them do it. But this is sort of different because it's a tax on the excess premium above that threshold.
All right, well, we better move on. We thank you for coming in.
Very welcome.
We'll keep in
Just
touch.
make one comment. And just looking really quickly on the group of individuals that are currently working for us in page 10, the premiums are probably abnormally higher than normal because over 55% of the population of the employees are under the age of 40, between 35 and 45 or 50, which is a very high percentage. And you've got only 10% are over the age of 60. So that means that in the next few years, if we can, either you change your requirements for hiring, meaning you change the age bracket of who you're hiring, which is a requirements change. It's an HR requirement change in order to justify or reduce the healthcare costs, because the highest premiums are always going to be in the ages of 35 to 45. You're always going to pay more,
Well,
no matter who you go with.
These premiums are not experience rated to Atherton. That is, these premiums are community rated over the whole first
Understood.
population.
Understood, but it's just just a real quick, why would you have a number at today's date versus where would you be 10 years from now?
Yeah.
So when you were trying to get both a projection of compensation along with the body of people you currently have versus where you're gonna be 10 years from now, you get a little bit a greater accuracy just by looking at the body of people you currently have, assuming that there's a continuance of the same individual. Or, like I said, you change your requirements for hiring practices. If you change that, that number will go down.
Well, actually, in plans like CalPERS, CalPERS medical plan, they don't care how old a given municipality is. They charge the same rates. If 5 years from now, your average age is 5 years older, you're still gonna be paying the same as everybody else. Now, that could change.
Okay.
That could change, but right now, that's how that works. CalPERS doesn't wanna have that change. But it could possibly happen at some point. You're right, the true cost does go up, but it's kind of being subsidized now for the older groups. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, let's move on our agenda, and then the next item on our agenda
Thank you, Robert.
is the,
See ya.
Donation?
yeah, what is that, what's that? I'm not sure, he's not gonna be able to be here, is he?
No, he's out of the country, and this is just a follow-up that once, we'll meet with him and we'll get something going, just to let you know, inform you that, we're looking on the pension side, and we discussed it a little bit, earlier on the issues, and pretty much what we're gonna do there's basically 3 issues. The first issue is the per side fund, which at the end of this fiscal year, June, will be paid off. So that issue of the PERS pension on the side fund will be changed. And that will update the miscellaneous rate that we have to pay to PERS. That's the one issue on the side fund. And that's about $700,000 in the miscellaneous side fund. The second issue, and the other 2 issues, and we need to decide on both, or on which one, is on the funding status of the pension based on the market value. Whether if we're saying it's 75% or 85%, what would be our options? Is there a PERS options gap that we want to implement? One would be create a new side fund with an agency, similar to like a PARS, to mitigate that gap, or increase the employer rates that we're contributing already to PERS. That's one of the issues. The third issue that we're going to look at, the second issue, I'm sorry, is also tackling maybe the discount rate. What would be the variance in the discount rate if it's, right now it's at 7.5%, well, what would be the impact of the reduction? Which would be, we can go from 7.25 all the way down to 5%, and then set aside a trust to fund a what-if gap. So, of the 3 issues, one we're gonna fix with the side fund, and the other 2 issues is, what are we gonna go with in figuring out what would the percentage be of what is funded, and then come up with a new side fund or increase our employee rate. Or the last option is one focusing on the discount rate of return on the PERS pension, and see, okay, if it drops down down to a certain percentage, this will be the gap between what the percentage return is right now to what we think it could be, in the best case, worst case scenario, and then come up with that gap and set aside a trust to put money aside to that. So that's what I wanted to report, is that's what we're looking at. And I think with talking with Joe Nation, we can look at those things. And then also, I've been in communication with some actuarials that also that focus on this pension stuff with CalPERS, and one is Bartel Associates, and they did Sausalito's PERS analysis, and they can do that for us. So so those are two resources that we're looking at. So We did cover the PERS earlier in those issues, and what is the unfunded liability, what's gonna come up down the future. So I think these two scenarios will help us get clearer to that point of, you know, what if scenarios, putting more to the side to fund some of these things.
When did we do that original side fund?
Which one?
The first one we did?
That was in July of last year, 2012, or it was paid in June, I'm sorry, the middle of June, 2012. That was the cops, that was the public safety. It was 1.2 million, so that was paid off. And the assumption was that we would bring it back and pay off the 704,000 by the end of June. And that is the direction that we're going for the council, to pay that off. Once we pay that off, the rates on the miscellaneous side will adjust, because currently, in the contribution that we're paying right now to PERS on the miscellaneous includes the amortization of the 700,000 side fund is in that rate that we're currently paying. So once we pay that, our rate should adjust. And looking at it, right now, the rate looks to go up to about 15%. Right now, we're paying about 13.6. So it should go up to about 15.1% this coming year, fiscal year. With the payoff on the side fund, the amortization, it's about 4% that we're paying into this new rate of 15%. So the difference would be, if we pay that off, about 11.5%, almost 12% should be our rate once the side fund's paid off.
Because I got an article here that says that the pension, the PERS is gonna start charging 10% more over the next 10 years, or next 5 years. And I don't know how much of that we eat, or whether the side funds take care of it. So you
Yeah.
should see if you can come back to us on that point.
Yeah, we will, definitely.
I can show you the article, it was in the Wall Street, I think.
Great, I'd love to see that. And yeah, once the side fund is paid off, our rate should adjust on the miscellaneous side. And then the way CalPERS does it with the rates, they give you 2-year rates. One is your initial rate, and the other one is a projected rate. So by the time your first year of your new rate you're paying, the second projected rate will be trued up or verified. So they do it in 2-year increments, so you have an understanding of where your rate is. And again, the second year and the projected gets adjusted towards the end of that first year. And so we're going to start on that.
Well, is this something that should be on the agenda for next month,
For
to discuss this?
yes.
With or without donation, what's the arrangement you have with it?
Just once I think he gets in town, I think next week. I think he's out till the middle of April. Once he gets back, we'll have dialogue and go from there and push for it to be in the next agenda meeting for the finance committee.
All right, well,
Who is he? Is he a consultant?
No, he's a professor in the Stanford Public Policy Program. He's called Professor of the Practice of Public Policy. And he put together a team a year or two ago, created a big splash by analyzing the state's 3 big pension funds and pointing out that under more realistic assumptions, there would be very large net unfunded liabilities. And that was published by the Stanford Institute of Economic Policy Research and attracted a lot of attention. He was a Democratic Assemblyman representing.
oh, that's where I know him, I know that name.
Randy County.
Santa Rosa,
Yeah, yeah. And I think he's a very capable guy.
So he just helped, he's just doing it pro bono?
Yeah, I think he's got a foundation grant to support him in helping some towns. I mean, I was thinking, gosh, how can we get you to help us at Atherton? Because we really need to come up with a realistic,
All right, well, the next time he's available, we have a meeting, he should try and make it if he can,
Yeah.
and we'd appreciate it.
yeah.
Just
We
that.
may not agree with his comments, but at least we know more.
Well, he kind of broke to the public the story about these huge unfunded liabilities.
Yeah.
We've met with him a couple of times, and I think he would provide some good information.
All right, well, we better move on to the, unless we have anything else, we move on to the financial statements.
Can I take a quick 1 minute break real quick?
Sure.
Sorry.
You want a couple minutes to stop, guys?
Yes,
You want to talk about-
Mr. Chairman, I really apologize, but in about 5 minutes, I'm gonna need to leave.
All right.
I've wrote a note here, I'm okay for May 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. When we get to the future dates, the following week, I'm turning into.
May 7th,
7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
that's good or it's not?
Good, those are the good dates for me. So, I just wrote it down.
Okay.
Apologize for leaving this early.
Are there any expectations you have for future meetings that you want to communicate?
Well, for next month, I was thinking it was about May 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. It's a good time for me. The following week, I'm going
I'm at topics of the agenda.
well, I think the big one needs to be, how do we present a truthful picture to the public about our pension?
Or the council first?
What?
The council first.
Yeah, well, present it not just to the public, but to the council. That's a really big one. It's
Yeah, and
a slippery issue that I'm trying to.
I thought we were going to have that also for the budgeting period. And I think the council is going to have a workshop on the budget, first workshop next Monday, I think. And I thought that the two financial plan, the long range financial plan would be ready for that process, but probably won't.
It's a sort of elusive issue.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Robert and the city manager have given this a lot of thought. So I don't know what they're gonna present to you in the budget. They have done some thinking about it.
Of course.
No, and I think, and just to piggyback on assumptions and forecasting, one would be the OPEB, to show, and maybe we could show that towards, and the use of our reserve funds. The other thing would be the pension liabilities that would potentially be forecasted as down the road, and show that as a forecast, as a 5-year forecast of this is.
When will you have that 5-year forecast?
Oh, you'll have that in our next meeting. We're working on that, and that'll be,
On Monday's meeting?
it'll be for the May meeting.
So it won't be part of the budget then?
I have one that will be, it won't be an actual, but the one in May will be more final. But I will have a portion of that. And what I'll do is I'll show a percentage of maybe this OPEB that we have outstanding, and go from there. But it'll be a draft for Monday, and then May will be the more of a concrete.
So the budgeting process starts with the city council instead of the finance committee?
The first budget workshop will be it'll be more of a,
Just seems like
because of the
they
policy.
should be getting the cliff note for a version.
Yeah, what is the procedure on that in the past?
It'll be,
There hasn't been a good procedure.
no, and the first budget workshop will be an overall, it'll be a general view of, right now, for the general fund, of funding. The one in May will be more of a concrete detail, and that will come to the finance committee prior to the next, to the next budget
Are we
workshop.
only going to have 3 council members there Monday?
I'm not sure. Was that I didn't hear if that was the case.
Well,
Is
the
that
city
closed-
manager
is that
gonna
closed
be there?
session?
Yes, sir.
No, the open session.
What?
It'll be,
Yes, it would be a closed session, no, it has to be open session.
it's open session. He'll be here.
No, I thought he was on vacation.
He is, but he comes back Monday.
Well, he comes back.
Yeah, welcome anybody who'd like to come.
Yeah, well, I plan on being there. What time does it start?
Yeah, that's my.
I think it's at 2.
2 o'clock?
So Monday at 2.
Yeah, I don't know that we can do any other than listen, but that's worth,
You can always come.
Okay, I know everybody got a big old packet, and I apologize that it was so big. One with the OPEB, one with our financials and other documentation.
yeah, we need to talk about that at the next meeting, but let's get our auditor out of here, you guys need to
Yeah.
take it.
No, what I wanted to just kind of go over is just kind of a brief analysis, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Wong on the whole audit and the whole, the final analysis on Atherton. As you all are aware, that we finished with a net assets of 46 million. Of that amount, 6.8 million is the unrestricted net assets. Our total.
Now, are you following your MD&A?
Yeah, it's on page 3.
So under
Sorry.
financial highlights?
Yes, on the financial highlights. I'm just gonna go over them real quickly and then go to the two most important, I think, for the general fund financial statements that, you know, we can go and discuss. The total net assets increased by 685,000, and, you know, this is attributed to some property tax and sales tax and other revenues and savings from the reorganization. I just wanted to point out that, you know, of that savings, we had a fund balance of about 6.2 million. So at the fourth bullet, at the end of our current fiscal year, the unassigned fund balance for the general fund was 3.5 million, or 30.3% of our total general fund expenditures, which was about 11 million was our expenditures. So this is about 30% of unassigned fund balance. In our right now we have a requirement that we don't let it drop below 20%. So at 30.3%, we're hitting that parameter and then some. Kind of go to page.
Wait, can I ask a question of our auditor?
Yeah. Yes.
What, is that normal at 20-30%? What is it, a norm on other cities?
It's right now, because the way the economy is, there's whole range of it. So, but this percentage is for the town, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And then kind of go to page, I'm gonna go to page 6. If you look at the town's net assets, and you know what it is, we do show that we have more assets than our liabilities. Our liabilities are 4.1 million in 2012. Our total assets are 50.4 million, and our total net is 46 million. So in the 3 categories, we all are reporting positive balances. The town is. So.
Well, you got 28 million of that was fixed assets.
Right. And so the two underlying numbers that you want to, that we focus on is the restricted, the 10.6 million, and the unrestricted, which was mentioned previously, of the 6.8 million. Of that 6.8 million, 3 million is on the general fund side of the unassigned balance. So going through that, page 7 kind of shows.
Just so I understand what
Yes.
that means.
Mhm.
The 3-point-some million is unassigned, the balance matches the budget, the projected budget expenditures?
Mhm. Yes. Of what we want to do as far as having a reserve wise, yes, sir. On page 7 is just showing us the scenario of from 11 to 2012, and there were the charges and services was decreased by 783,000. Of that,
Which
a lot of
item is
it, the charges for services on page 7.
Oh, yeah.
It was down, and that's gonna be attributed to, we did in this fiscal year, we did the road construction impact fee reimbursement, so that was why there was a decrease in that, because of that.
Is this gonna go to 0?
We won't have that anymore. For the charges for services is, majority of that is our public works, our building permits and fees. But there was a big adjustment in the total of this because it's including the impact fees that we reimbursed, that, in the road construction fund.
But in your budget for next year would be around 2 million?
Yes, and looking at the way, for a total, it'll be roughly around that, it's not gonna be about 2.8 million, like it was in 11, so.
Okay.
Going to our, let's jump down to our taxes, increased by 621,000 during the year. Primarily was doing it due to the increase of 323,000 in property tax. Some of it was a one-time increase in the sales tax that was due to a sales in paintings that was here for one time. Good thing to note that our garbage tax had an increase of 104,000. I think we won't see that big of an impact going this year because I think last year was just a true up from
the budget standpoint, the 323 will be recurring, the rest of it drops out.
Yes. Yes. And then on page 8, the total expenditures had decreased about 1 million.
Wait a minute, what about the public works there under expenses? You had such a big decrease, I just wondered what.
That was due to the reorganization of public works and building. We did the outsourcing.
And is there an increase because of the contractor? Where does that show?
That is also in the public works portion as expenses.
1.4 million.
Yes, because there was there was 2 departments that we had. It was the public works, which was the maintenance and also engineering portion of that, and then the building that was outsourced. So it's just other, pretty significant. As far
The
as
revenues for the new building fees and the cost of the contractor is all netted in there?
Yes, sir. Well, no, that's just expenditures, but it includes the cost that we pay for that contractor. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then there was some expenditures in there that were still, because there was a changing over. We had some contract services for building inspection that was incurred. That's why you see an increase in there on the building as well. Again, just jump to the middle of the general fund, how we're showing.
What page are you on?
Page 8. I'm sorry. On the top of page 8 was the 1 million.
That's what we just talked about?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So that was, page 8 is our general fund. Our total fund balance is 6.2 million. And of that, 3.5 million is unassigned, as was discussed. And so that was a good indication going forward. But if I want to kind of just finish this page and then we'll go to the financial statement portion. At the bottom of that general fund budgetary highlights, there were some increases in apportionments. One was the 1.2 million in the CalPERS levy side fund, you see in the bottom of page 8. And then we also had to pay a contribution for solid waste, 252. That's done. And there's some building department increases.
Oh, this is the side fund that I was questioning earlier, the 1.2?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was
And the, back up a little on the special tax revenue fund, I assume that's the parcel tax.
Yes, sir.
Now, why did the expenditures decrease by 800,000?
It has to do with projects that we did within there. And going forward on page 18 there's 2 important parts of the financial statement for the general fund, and it's 16 and 18. 18 is the revenues, expenditures, and changes in balances. That's basically the P&L portion. So if we go to special tax on page 18, total revenues was 1.8 million.
And that's the parcel tax?
Yes, sir. That's a parcel tax. Then there was total expenditures of 1.4 million. You'll see there's a capital outlay of 1.2 million. A big portion of that was due to the $537,000 was the Fletcher Ridgeview, and Fletcher Ridgeview project, and 763 was the upper channel repair. So that's that 1.2 on the expenditure of the 1,279,000
Capital outlay.
capital outlay.
But that was evidently 600,000 less than budget, or
Yes.
800,000, because the 2,200,000 would be.
Well, did you net some recovery on that?
And we did.
It's right-
It decreased basically from prior year. That was the decrease.
But is the recovery from the contractor also embedded in here?
No, the recovery happened in this fiscal year, so,
Okay.
and that's the one-time, 184,000, that went to the general fund. But showing, staying with the special, tax revenue, there's that 1.1 million. You see the expense, the transfer, and it's going to the general fund. That's the 60% tax that goes to fund for PD, and the remaining amount stays in here for capital improvement projects, which we've been undertaking. So what I
So
want
the
to
balance at the end is 875, and that's available for carryover for next year?
Yes, sir. That would be, that's what we have this year plus net of what revenue came in and expenditures for capital projects that we've undertaken this year. And so at the end, 875,000 plus the net
Was there
of.
some capital projects we didn't do?
No, it's just, there's projects that we have done and projected out in multiple years increments. So usually with the projects, we do the engineering, the environmentals, and then we start moving into the actual projects themselves.
Sure, if
You
that's significant.
You probably want to have a year carryover, you may not pass the partial tax, you need to
Yeah.
do some projects.
Well, I was thinking, if the Blackman's, you could afford something there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, and that's part of what we will do with our Director of Public Works in Interwest is we put that into our capital improvement project, and we take in consideration the funding that we have in there.
Start the year.
We may commit to a road project.
Right.
And have to use those funds the following.
Yeah, I would just think that, we went through this several years ago about whether we're keeping up with our roads and stuff, and I never did figure out how they go, but I'll leave that to the.
And what we'll do with the road.
This million that you transferred, in essence, under road police activity.
Right.
And how did you get to that number?
That's, in fact, that should be in your footnotes. The 60/40 was agreed to by the board some
It
years ago.
says note 4, I don't know why I found note 4.
Note 4 doesn't
It's on
tell you
page-
percentages.
It was actually a finance committee's recommendation.
Yeah. It's on page 39.
Yeah, I was thinking it really it would show those percentages up there on that.
And when we do it, I believe in the budget that we're in this year, it was communicated, but we will make sure on the year-end financials for
The
this
auditor should be aware of
12-13
that, because the
that we
number
do
is
that.
60%.
Yeah.
For
They're
police
aware.
and 40% for capital.
So, so, yes, 1.1 million went in there, but if you look at the expenditures for the PD, it's 5.3 million.
Right.
So,
Where's that?
On page 18, if you go to the expenditure in the general fund column, you go to the police department, their police department expenditures is 5.3 million. So 1.1 million is offsetting 5.3 million of expenditures. So the majority still comes out of the general fund, but this parcel tax does help significantly. And you'll see when we do the 5-year forecast, and we've seen in the last one that was provided that it's in there. And we can do scenarios showing it coming out would be a significant to the operation.
So actually, you spent more capital outlays than 40% of 1 year's of parcel taxes. 40% would have been.
Yes, and
This goes in the bucket.
Right.
Yeah.
So it carries over.
Yeah.
Mhm. And just like Mr. Carlson says, it's part of, it goes into already a fund bucket, reserves that we have, we take that into consideration when we do a project. We may not have, you know, years where we get the full amount
All right.
and stuff, so we use that to augment. So just to point out, on the general fund here on page 18, the net change in fund balance for the general fund is only $13,681 is the net change in fund balance. Last year, it was about, it was 412,000 negative change in fund balance. So, that's a pretty significant improvement.
Well, your revenues went up 900,000.
Right, and then too, this 11-12 fiscal year also was kind of a year where there was a transition, where part of it was with all our departments, and then they had the reorganization in the fall of 2011. So you had about almost 5 months of the full staffing and then moving into the new.
We had a bigger negative number.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I mean, it's a good trend showing, you know, 13,681 compared to last year. In this fiscal year, we're hoping that, and we did present that, probably about 1 million change in fund balance to the general fund. So, but a lot of that is attributed to is we're starting to see another increase in the property taxes, which is about 400-something thousand. But what's in there is one-time revenue, 350,000 for Facebook, and then the 84,000 for the monies on the Fletcher litigation. So about 500,000 is increased over what we projected.
So without the parcel tax, it'd be about $1 million difference.
Well, it was zero. It'd be zero.
While you're on page 18, I'd just like to point out one other column here. This is under the library special revenue fund. You see that we brought in